Boswell trying to get it done. Snap, placement, kick on the way. Boswell! That's a winner! Unforgettable season opener!
Whew, man, I'm just appreciative of the efforts of those men. I'm not surprised by the fight. I knew they would fight.
Missing those field goals was like, damn, we don't die. But by the time Boz went out for the last one, I was like, oh, we got to make this because, man, we've been damn zombies the entire game. They've tried to put us out, tried to kill us, but just kept bouncing back.
The Steelers, also known as the Walking Zombies, according to Cam Hayward. Hi, everybody. I'm Missi Matthews, and welcome to the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. A wild finish in Cincinnati at Paycor Stadium. Let's break it all down for you, what happened on Sunday. Now let's welcome in our panelists today from the Steelers Radio Network. We have former offensive lineman Craig Wolfley on hand with us, as well as Steelers contributing writer and editor Dale Lolley, and Matt Williamson, also from the Steelers Radio Network, kind enough to join us as well. So, guys, let's just go through a little bit of the end because I know this could take a really long time, but starting with the end of regulation before we even get to overtime, which was crazy enough. And Dale, as we're sitting here watching this, okay, we're like, here we go. They scored. This is probably going to end, right? Is that what you were thinking at least?
Absolutely. I had a tweet ready to go that, okay, Steelers lose their opener here 21-20 and boom.
A little Minka magic, Wolf, that's what you like to call it. He changed he changed it, right?
He definitely changed it. He started the game with a Minka magic moment. He finished the game, regulation time, with a Minka magic moment. The guy is incredible, and what he did was just astounding throughout the entire game. Just amazing.
All right, Matt, so we go into OT, and things get a little crazy once again there. We see the Bengals going for the field goal to be able to win it, and not so fast.
Yeah, I'm asked many times every year, usually around roster cutdown time, do long snappers matter? Why do these guys keep them on the roster? Yeah, they matter. There's a big difference between a starting long snapper and whoever else you throw in there. Of course, that's not the only reason the Steelers won, but that sure helped things. Just an unbelievable roller coaster there to finish this game. I mean, I can't imagine a more emotional game that I've seen.
Right, the doink, the donk, whatever you want to call it. Chris Boswell also not able to win it for the Steelers then, but then things continue to get crazier and crazier, Dale. You can't make this up.
No, you can't, and you know, we've seen endings like that before in Cincinnati. In fact, Mike Tomlin referenced the playoff game there with Vontaze Burfict running out of the tunnel, and then you also had it looked like the Bengals were going to win that game. And Ryan Shazier forces a fumble in that game and kind of completely changes things. So it's just been the nature of the series, and well, they added another chapter yesterday.
Credit to Mitch Trubisky, the free play, finding Freiermuth in the middle, really setting up that last field goal by Boz. Wolf, I heard some of your radio calls, so I know you were a little excited. Take us through the ending and just your final thoughts on the wild finish.
Really, I can sum it up. Too much coffee, okay? Absolutely lost my mind. It was just amazing. And I'm watching because how they kept their cool and calm going in the overtime there. And you're going down, you're Mitch Trubisky. Things haven't gone your way all day like you'd like them. It's not that he played badly. It's just not like you'd like him. But you come to that overtime and you look at the other guys in the huddle, they're looking at you, and you've got to marshal the resources of all these men and put it to getting this group down the field with, 56 seconds or something like that? I mean, it just absolutely kind of smoked me because I couldn't believe he made the plays when he had to make the play. And that's the sign of, number one, a leader, and number two, a guy that can control himself and his mentality so he can lead all the men down the field. What a great job he did of being able to throw it to Deontay, being able to throw it twice to the Freiermuth. And as I like to say, the Muth was on the loose on that overtime.
Matt, I just heard Minka Fitzpatrick on the Pat McAfee show, and he was asked, obviously, about playing so long. He played 100% of the snaps. He said, Coach Tomlin always says, don't blink or I'll cut your eyelids off. And I think that was a well saying to go along with yesterday and just how much those guys had to keep digging deep.
No, the resiliency, especially from the defense being out there as long as they were, the snap counts, as you mentioned with Minka, was really remarkable. And I think it's a credit to the coaching staff, especially Coach Tomlin, the way they practice, 7 shots, things like that, of goal line defense, the toughness he brings to the practice field as well, compared to a lot of the teams out there, and the leadership of this organization. I mean, you really need to dig deep to win a game like that. And that's exactly what they did. And the Stars came out to play.
All right, we'll act like this is maybe like, a movie show for some awards, and we will play and the winner is. So Wolf, we'll start with you. Who was your winner yesterday that helped the Steelers get the job done?
Oh, I got to highlight the Highsmith. I mean, you just love this kid. Comes on, does a great job. You got 9 tackles, 3 sacks, 4 quarterback hits, 2 tackles for a loss, and a forced fumble. I mean, great googly moogly. You couldn't ask more of an individual coming off of a rib injury. Make sure that his conditioning, everything is up to snuff. And then he goes out there and performs in a big way for the Steelers. I thought for a long time this young man's got star quality about him. It's starting to emerge.
Wolf, today Cam Hayward tried to take that 1 sack away from him. We call that an interception. So Cam wanted a pick on that one.
Exactly so. And sounds like Cam doing a little backseat negotiating there.
Dale, who won the game for you?
I mean, we've already touched on Minkah Fitzpatrick was everything that the Steelers needed him to be in that game, from the interception on the second play of the game, after the Highsmith sack on the Bengals' first offensive snap, to the blocked kick, to 14 tackles in that game. It just was all over the field and was, they used him in the slot. They used him at deep safety. They used him up in the middle of the field. He was really a chess piece, and that's what they had kind of planned on doing with him throughout the preseason. And you saw that come to fruition, what that means to this defense in this game on Sunday.
Dale, were you surprised or not surprised with the loss of Damontae Kazee, somebody who they really thought would help Minkah get free a little bit more, what he was able to do with the loss of him in the preseason?
Yeah, I mean, I think they really had a plan for Kazee, and Kazee's a very good football player, and I think when he returns, it's going to add to this defense. But the guys around Minkah, Matt and I talk about it all the time on our show, The Drive, on Steelers Nation Radio, that when you have a cornerback who follows the other team's opposing top receiver, everybody else on that defense has to know what their job is when that guy moves around in the formation. Same thing here with the Steelers in moving Minkah Fitzpatrick around. Everybody around him has to know what their job is and how it changes when he's in the slot or he's up at the line of scrimmage, and they did a great job of that yesterday.
Matt, who was the game winner for you?
Coach Austin, defensive coordinator, and obviously the players play, and they did a tremendous job. They won their one-on-one matchups on this side of the ball with great regularity. But I loved how prepared this team was, the emotion and energy they brought to the field from the first snap. But there were some tactical things, too, that were clearly coaching. Usually the Steelers, more than most defenses, because Minkah is so good in the single high, they're a one high safety team. I saw a lot of cover 2 shells. I thought the defensive backs were coached to really break on the ball downhill, resulting in interceptions, big plays, collisions. I loved how they rotated the front 7 and kept all those guys fresh early in the game, or maybe the end of the game doesn't go as well as it does. And clearly Burrow and the rest of the offense were overwhelmed from the beginning.
Well, if I was going to ask Joe Cool, as Joe Burrow is known, what did you see from him, especially with Minkah really starting fast for the Steelers there?
Well, I think you got to call him Appendectomy Joe. I think his inability to be able to take any preseason. Look, guys, I am absolutely convinced preseason matters. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that like to take the preseason games out and say, hey, you got to get rid of them. But if you look at the Bills, Rams, if you look at this game yesterday, preseason still matters. And if you take a look at the discontinuity amongst the offensive linemen on the Cincinnati Bengals, you can see that they had problems communicating and executing and keeping their quarterback clean. And their quarterback had rust. And the second thing is, it's important to keep hitting the quarterback. You got to keep hitting them. When you hit them, they get more inaccurate, more and more as you put them in the dirt. 7 sacks, 11 tackles for a loss. Oh, man, that's huge. That's going to create inaccuracies in any quarterback, especially one who maybe is not as strong in his core coming off appendectomy surgery and not participating in preseason games. because preseason games and regular season games are two different animals. Preseason conditioning and regular season games conditioning, they're different animals. And I think the Steelers demonstrated well what they needed to do yesterday.
All right, well, unfortunately, it was an expensive win for the Steelers. We're going to take a quick break over the list of injuries Coach Tomlin gave us post-game, update you from some national reports, and also talk about the Steelers offense and Mitch Trubisky's first start with the Steelers. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Wilcox, a backup tight end, is snapping it to Huber. McPherson on for the extra point to put Cincinnati in front. Trying to complete the round. McPherson, it's blocked! What a turn of events! Minka Fitzpatrick! A slow snap and the whole operation took too long.
Just appreciative of the efforts. It wasn't without cost. TJ Watt's being evaluated with an upper body injury.
All right, that injury to TJ Watt in Cincinnati on Sunday, the big one everybody will be keeping an eye on. Welcome back to the Extra Point, everybody. There are also some other injuries we heard from Coach Tomlin. Levi Wallace has an ankle injury. He left the game, was able to come back to the sideline. Also, Najee Harris dealing with a foot injury once again. Same thing that he dealt with, maybe possibly tweaking or re-aggravating during training camp. And also Robert Spillane with an eye injury. Mason Cole also had an ankle injury, but he was able to go back into the game. All right, so that's a lot after one game. As I said, Wolf, an expensive win. What's the biggest thing you take away knowing that there is a very strong possibility the Steelers are not going to have TJ Watt?
Well, I think defensively speaking, it does cast a little bit of a shadow upon that defense thinking, oh, what are we going to do? But that's the entire process that, Mike Tomlin undergoes is next man up. And I know it seems to be maybe a contrite statement that maybe, you just make it and then you go there, but it isn't. It really isn't. And Malik Reed came in and had some nice performance in there, some good snaps. They're going to have to go after, and they're going to have to make way with Malik Reed. And he's going to have to step up and carry a good ton of this stuff and produce what he's capable of. And I think, you're going to roll on. You're always going to miss what TJ would bring. I mean, you can't replace that. You simply have to maximize performance in other areas, and other people are going to have to step up to be able to do it.
Dale, is it realistic to expect the defense as a whole, what they were able to do yesterday against the reigning AFC champs, to do that week in and week out and to try to help the Steelers offense as it starts to try to gel?
Is it reasonable? Probably not, but I think that's going to be the expectation, and that's what Mike Tomlin talked about. He wanted a dominant defense, and so is it as reasonable to expect that without TJ Watt? Again, probably not, but you're also not going to be facing an offense like that of the Cincinnati Bengals week in and week out. We talked about it in the build-up to this game that Cincinnati has one of the best young offenses in the NFL. The skill position players are outstanding. The young quarterback is outstanding. The offensive line was supposed to be improved, and the Steelers went out there and took it to that group. So, they've played without TJ Watt at times last year. It wasn't always pretty when they did that, but they were also playing without some other pieces. Well, now they've got some of those other pieces are in place. Yes, you might be without TJ Watt for a while. We'll see how long that might be. It might not be as long as everybody is predicting. We'll see about that, but they at least have a guy, Malik Reed, who has done this in the past. He started 26 games over the last 2 seasons for the Denver Broncos. He has 13 sacks in those games. So yes, there's going to be a bit of a drop off there for sure. I mean, TJ Watt's the reigning Defensive Player of the Year, but we saw Alex Highsmith come out and have a 3-sack game yesterday. We saw other guys contribute in that as well. So I think they're in position, or at least better position than they would have been a year ago to play without TJ Watt. And Mike Tomlin always preaches next man up. Well, now it's time for the next man up.
Matt, what did you make of the Steelers defense? Cam Hayward just recently in the locker room today said, we started with a sack and we ended with a sack, especially given last year what was some of the issues up front. What did you make of their performance? And do you agree with Dale that maybe it's not realistic, but they might have to play lights out every game?
I mean, honestly, in today's NFL, with the rules the way they are, you're not going to get a much better defensive performance than what the Steelers put on tape yesterday from start to finish and as many snaps as they had to play. So I do think even if Watt were in the mix, it's a little unrealistic to expect the defense to take the ball away the way they did, to sack the quarterback the way they did, especially against a high-quality opponent, as Dale mentioned. But I also think it's realistic to say the offense could do a little more of their part, sustaining offense, make life a little bit easier on the defense. And as these guys mentioned, I think the Steelers are in much better shape with their depth options behind Watt and Highsmith than they were even 2 weeks ago. I mean, we didn't mention Jameer Jones, and I understand he's the fourth guy, but he can play. I mean, he did some good things in that game as well, and I think Reed is a keeper.
Well, if we have to talk about the Steelers offense, and when we do that, we have to talk about the offensive line. Fair to say a lot of question marks coming into this game. What did you make of their performance?
Well, look at it this way. We talked a lot about the inconsistencies and the inability to run the ball, and there's still issues that's going on with running the ball. I mean, and I believe it's going to take some more time. Max and I have been talking. Max Starks, that is, he's co-host, of course, in the locker room with the, Wolf Starks and the Ninjas. Since Dale's throwing out his show, I'll throw out our show too.
Shout out.
Battle of the shows
shout out.
There we go. So we look at it, we're talking about the fact you need 4 weeks or so just to try to put this together. And you take a look at what Cincinnati did yesterday and with the issues they had, I think it's comparable in the sense of you got to give these guys some more time. Look at Danny Moore was under the gun yesterday. Did you see Trey Hendrickson at all during the day? Not really. He had one quarterback hit. And Trey Hendrickson is a good pass rusher. He's an excellent player. And Danny Moore came along, did some good things, and Chooks and everybody else. So all those guys contributing, it's hard to run the ball against Cincinnati on the inside. You're talking between Tupou, Hill, and Reeder. You've got almost a half a ton of meat cooking down on the grill down there on the inside, right? That's an awful lot. As Bob Labriola used to say, you could start a grease fire with all that fat down there, right? So the fact is, you're not going to run it very well straight. Where I was disappointed was when they attempted to run to the outside and they didn't pin Hubbard and Hendrickson inside and get to the outside the way I think they could have. And there was a couple of times, and look, Najee didn't have a lot of reps in training camp. There's a time or two Najee missed a hole too. So the fact of the matter is that running game will get better as we go along here, I do believe.
Dale, Mitch Trubisky getting his first start with the Pittsburgh Steelers. All eyes also on him. I think there was a lot to watch in this one. What did you make of his performance?
I thought it was obviously a little uneven, but he made the plays when he needed to make the plays, and I think that's what we've seen from Mitch Trubisky thus far in his short term here with his short tenure with the Steelers. He's been good when they've had him in 2-minute situations in the OTAs, in training camp, his one chance to do it in the preseason, and then again in this game yesterday. So I do believe that he's going to have better days than what he did yesterday. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And I don't know that you can overlook the fact that maybe there were a little bit of nerves here for him as well in his first game for a new team. But I think to come out of this with a victory and take care of the football again, I think that was a big point of emphasis for the Steelers in this one. I don't know that they necessarily wanted him throwing a bunch of balls downfield. Once they had a 17-3 lead. I think they kind of, I'm not going to say that they turtled in that situation, but they kind of said, hey, let's take it easy here. Don't take any chances. Let the defense continue to do its job here. There will be better days ahead for Mitch Trubisky. I have no doubt about that.
Matt, what's the next step you want to see the Steelers offense take next Sunday, or this upcoming Sunday, I should say, for the home opener against the New England Patriots?
I know everyone's hard on the O-line, but I do think it's taking baby steps every time we see them, especially in protection. I thought the tackles held up well, but what I want to see and it needs to happen for this offense to take the next step is I'm fine with the misdirections and the flea flickers and the end arounds and all that stuff, and I think that's been missing over the years. That being said, Their old school drop back passing game isn't good enough right now, and their ability to move people in the run game isn't good enough right now. But I think it's getting better.
All right, well, that is our recap of the Steelers' 23-20 overtime win in Cincinnati. Check win one for week one as we move on to week two. Guys, thanks so much for joining me here today, and thanks to everybody at home for watching the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. We'll see you guys next week.